I'd like to call the March 23rd regular meeting of the City of Post Falls Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Just a reminder, make sure that you turn off or at least silence your cell phone, and we will go ahead and get things rolling and start with roll call.
Hampi,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis,
Here.
Kimball,
Present?
Carey,
Here.
Stephenson.
Here.
All right. Ceremonies, announcements, appointments, and presentations. I believe there was a couple things that we needed to hit on this evening.
Yeah, we've been talking about just some national recognized days. So for a fun one, it's National Chip and Dip Day. That's why you had chip and dips back there.
Very nice.
Perfect.
And then also another interesting tidbit is also National Near Miss Day. So this is celebrated on March 23rd of each year. On March 22nd, 1989, an asteroid called 4581 Asclepius, about the size of a mountain, came very close to colliding with Earth. It was about 450,000 miles away from Earth. Experts say that if the asteroid had hit, it would have been resulting in realized the equal energy of about 1,000 atomic bombs. It wasn't discovered, though, until 9 days after it had already flown by Earth.
Oh,
So since then, they've been celebrating this March 23rd of each year.
Near miss.
okay. Little fun chip and dip day. Little fortuitous miss is near miss day. All right. Thank you for that tidbit of information. Do we have any amendments to the agenda this evening?
There is a proposed modification, action item C, the reasoned decision for the Grace Delight TwinHomes special use permit. Staff wanted to go over a tweak to that reasoned decision. It's not really substantive, but wanted to go over the details of that and move that to the old business.
Okay, so we'll take it out of consent to old.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Go
that's
ahead.
it there.
Okay.
Gail, do we need a motion to move that?
Yeah, it would be good to do a motion to move it from the consent calendar.
Okay. Motioning.
I would move to move action item C, the reasoned decision for Grace Delight TwinHomes, from the consent calendar to old business.
I second.
It's been a motion and a second. Can we do a verbal vote or do we need to go through the whole?
You can do verbal.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it is moved. Commissioners, declaration of conflict, ex parte contacts, or site visits, anything to declare?
No.
None.
Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to the consent calendar.
Yeah, so action item A is the minutes from the March 8th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Action item B is the minutes from the March 11th, 2022 Planning and Zoning meeting. And action item D is the reasoned decision for the Post Falls Baptist Spokane Street Special Use Permit, file number USE 7, 2021.
I would move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
I second.
Motion second, any further discussion? Call for vote?
Stephenson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Hampi.
Yes.
All right, citizen issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens that wish to address the commission on an issue that is not on this evening's agenda. We also like to add that comments on issues that are planned for future meetings should be held for that meeting. Is there anyone here wishing to address the commission for citizen issues? Okay, seeing none, then we will go ahead and move on to unfinished old business.
John Manley, Post Falls Planning Manager here at the City of Post Falls. So what I am showing here is the only change to that reasoned decision is the condition number 6 for Grace Delight that talked about prior to construction, a geotech report shall be completed with regards to the potential fill that would be remediated in conformance with the recommendations of that report, and changed it to the following, and it more or less has to do with timing and how implementation more than likely would take place. And I don't believe the proposal takes away from the spirit of 6, but it says that a geotech report shall be submitted with the application for subdivision to address the potential fill. So when they would submit their subdivision application, they would submit a geotech report with that. They wouldn't have to remediate it prior to submitting it. 7 then says, prior to platting and or any residential permits being issued, any unconsolidated fill areas found in the report more or less would be remediated in conformance with the report. So it allows someone to submit the geotech report for the subdivision, and when they do construction, odds are they would do the construction and hauling out of all the material and filling it in and the compaction at that time. So this just allows for more of a strategic implementation of what the initial desire of condition 6.
Makes sense.
All right.
Any questions for John?
7 was already there, right? Or is that new? You're changing 6 and adding 7, or just changing 6?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm adding 7, it's
Yeah,
new.
so- okay,
I'm changing it from a single part to a 2-part condition
okay,
with the same outcome.
thank you.
Which makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay, Phil, do we need a motion then to,
Yeah, it would be a motion to approve the reasoned decision with the
As
updated,
amended.
as amended.
I move to approve the amended reasoned decision for, thank you, the Grace Delight Townhomes, or Twin Homes, excuse me, USC 0008-2022.
I second.
motion and second, any further discussion? Can I call for a vote? Can we just do verbal?
I would call for a vote.
Let's call for a vote then, please.
Hamby,
Yes.
Schlauer.
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes?
Carey,
Yes.
Stevenson.
Yes.
All right. Well, since Mr. Manley appears to already be ready, then we'll go ahead and move into public hearings and go ahead and open the Stockwell Court subdivision.
Yeah, so this will be the staff report pertaining to the Stockwell Court subdivision, file number SUBD 13, 2021. The current owners of the property is Dave and Debbie Stockwell, with the applicant being Chuck Hughes. The intent is to request approval to subdivide approximately 5 acres into 18 lots with single-family R1 zoning, consistent with Post Falls Municipal Code. Project location is, as you see here, it's south of Prairie Avenue, about halfway between Howell Road and Chase Road. Looking at the area around it, you can see that to the north in the white area, those are Kootenai County properties, large lot Kootenai County. You have to the east a R1 zone, Tranquil Meadows. To the south, you have the R1S with a PUD that allows for development for the R1 bulk and placement standards, the Craftsman and Meadow Ridge. And then to the west, you have the Arrowleaf Estates. It's zoned R1S with a PUD that also allows for R1 bulk and placement performance standards. More or less, looking around this property and why it was more or less more likely approved was most of the development around it is R1 in nature. You're looking at the largest lot in the vicinity, about 0.4 acres, to Arrowleaf that has some pretty small lots to the west. This kind of dives into the built environment to the west and east. You know, same projects you see here cited over on the left side of the screen. You can see here, this is right-of-way that had already been dedicated with Arrowleaf with the intent to provide connectivity to the east upon future subdivisions. And you see that carried through other developments where you have that east-west road here over at Tranquil Meadows. So you'll see here on the proposal that connection of those 2 roads, as well as you see here the north arrow that's to the right. It's just the way the screen dimensions. So north is to the right. The Green Crestway is planned to go from the west to the east, with Stockwell Court going northerly, with a private lane coming off Stockwell Court. There is a condition, though, that this is not to the private lane does not necessarily, it does not connect to Prairie. It transitions at the end of this lane to only a fire access road. So only fire will be able to exit out of Prairie or only be able to lift that through emergency type situations. All the lots that you see here meet the minimum lot size for the R1 zoning of 6,500 square feet, and they all are greater than the minimum lot width of 60 feet for an R1 zone. But looking at the review criteria, we look at, has there been provisions for a water supply system, and is it adequate in terms of quantity and quality? The will serve letter was established and incorporated within the staff report, is that they'd be able to provide that. The next criteria deals with public sewage system to the municipal, that we can accommodate the sewage flows. This project did bring some scrutiny on it to find out whether or not we could. We looked at it and we saw that the lift station is approaching capacity, but that reconstruction is anticipated in 2024. The city also will be providing additional capacity to the Fisher Lift Station by the fall and early winter of 2022 with some temporary improvements. So more or less, staff do not see that this impeding the ability to serve this with sewer, as there's actions in place to serve this site. The developer also is agreeing to share the cost of those temporary improvements of a $5,000 contribution. The next criteria is looking at the streets and the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. See that the subdivision and the layout does not present itself a negative impact on the local transportation network. Going to that, I think I might have it there, that trail fire access lane connecting Stockwell Court will assist the pedestrian activity through the subdivision and provide that fire access through it and safety. You see here on condition 2 that's within that subdivision, that driveways cannot end in Stockwell Court, and that the proposed common driveways at the end of Stockwell Court shall be shifted 5 feet to the north to allow a 20-foot parking pad to accommodate parking per Post Falls Municipal Code. What we discovered in looking at the proposed subdivision is the distance from the private lane here to that house to the south that the intent to serve, that measurement was 15 feet. So we would request that that private lane just shift 5 feet. It was not perceived to present itself a negative hardship on that ask. The other criteria is looking at the soil and topographical conditions. Presenting hazards have been identified. Staff just cites that it is over the Rathdrum Aquifer, but there are no known soil or topographical conditions to present hazards on the site. The other one is the proposed subdivision is zoned for the proposed uses conforming to the requirements found in this code. Like I said, it does meet the R1. Additional mention is this was just approved for R1 March 15th at the City Council. Criteria 6, the last one, deals with the new development and growth paying its fair share. Staff states that the impact fees, in addition to the CAT fees that go along with development at the time of building permits, offsets the offsite impacts for parks, public safety, streets, city water, and water reclamation facilities. Here's the agencies that were notified. You see that Post Falls Highway District cited that there would be no direct access on the prairie, and that is the case with that proposed subdivision, where the only access is through that fire lane. CUNY County Fire and Rescue, they want to reserve their comments through the permitting process, and they generally comment at that stage. If they had some concerns, they would have brought that up. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, they typically are more concerned with site development and conditions dealing with environmental impacts at a time of development, and has commented of that nature. Here's an overview of the 6 questions real quick as I wrap up the staff report, and we'll go over them again after through the reasoned decisions process. But any questions for me?
On the whole, in general?
Yes.
Yeah, I do have a question on, would you go back again on the map? Greencrest Way that they're bringing across the bottom there? So it's only going to be, does it go across into the development next to it, or dead ends?
I'll go into that other map, this one. So, if you see here, there is at this location a terminus of that subdivision further to the east. Directly to the east, this site being, I'm trying to get the mouse word, this site being the case in hand, we have Greencrest Way at the southern end of the subdivision directly to the east.
So will it be connected, that'll be connected, and then
So-
it'll end at that subdivision?
Yeah, the circulation plan would be to continue Greencrest Way through this, about midpoint of this land at such time it ever develops, go northerly, and then turn and go easterly to that point on that subdivision, creating a continuous connecting corridor through that area. The areas that are be outlets that are planned that meet our spacing corridors for transportation, Passenger View Street will be a north-south, and then you could go out to Howell, and there'll be other connections. But so that there's the spacing standards for the road network and how it meets the transportation master plan, and it doesn't have other roads because of the road classification of Prairie. Engineering's looked at it, and they minimize points of conflict along it.
Okay, so for now, it will just dead end there at the east of the development next to it?
At this point in time, it would
Okay,
download at the east of this, but we do have an access on Howell, and we do have this Passenger View Estates, which fire departments looked at, and they don't have any concerns with those being those points of exits. They also have, if you go southerly, the potential to go south out that direction as well.
okay, thank you.
Hey, John, with regards to that existing right-of-way stub off of Arrowleaf Loop, I saw a comment from one of the homeowners in our packet that said that that was, or that it appeared to be open space, an open space tract, and it looks like it's developed like that. And can you explain, I guess probably for the general public here, how that came to be
Yes.
a right-of-way and
Yeah, I appreciate that.
and why
So-
it wasn't built at the time, I guess?
So Arrowleaf, when that subdivision went in, it was clear within the records of Arrowleaf that they had to provide some open space to be classified as a PUD. Staff discussed it at the time. Should we leave that dirt? Should we just leave it open? What should we do? We have no idea how soon or the time frame of development to the east. So would it be better to have it as a green space for a short period of time or a long period of time? Who knows? But at the end of the day, we were looking at our transportation network and looking for the interest of the overall community in that area. So we reserved that right of way for if at such time in the future a subdivision came in, we could provide that connecting point, knowing that odds are that whenever a green space goes away, it's never an enjoyable experience for anybody, but this was planned for that, and why it was decided that we would live with a positive element for a shorter term or a longer term. We had no idea. And this just so happened, and now with the housing boom and, you know, the rate in which we're developing, it came on probably sooner than a lot of people would have expected, but it has been planned.
Okay, thank you.
But it's still going to be left open area on the other, on the sides to
Yes,
the north
so-
and the south of the street, right?
South of that right-of-way line would stay a green space, and north of that right-of-way line would stay green space.
Okay,
You know, pedestrian connectivity was an important element, and that's another reason why there was that access out to Prairie was to keep that pedestrian connectivity viable.
And so it looks like to me that if when that road, or if this is proof that when that road connects out, it'll actually give people on Arrowleaf Loop almost a much faster way out to Prairie Avenue than they currently have.
Yeah, they would be able to go, let's just say easterly, probably the individuals on this, probably the individuals on this side of that Arrowleaf would be able to probably expedite their access easterly going through this road and up Pasture View and then out on Prairie.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions for John?
Yeah, John, for that private lane, how is that constructed to where it's only gonna be fire only? And to mitigate people from trying to use it otherwise?
I was wondering if it's gated or if there's a,
Yeah, well, I mean, in my previous house I lived in, there was an entrance, it was supposed to be fire only, and it definitely wasn't.
Yeah, typically, I mean, Rob might be the best one to address how he would intend to handle that as part of the construction drawing set, as far as what he would want to see in that to meet that intent.
Good evening, Commissioners. Robert Paulus, Assistant City Engineer. The proposed construction plans do show bollards being put in both on the Prairie Avenue side and then on the southern side by the private lane to prevent vehicles from utilizing it unless they have a key to get around the bollards, which the fire department has.
Perfect.
makes sense.
And then one last note, when you're looking at subdivisions, you're really looking at, I'm gonna go back to that 6 criteria. These are the 6 criteria we're looking at for the subdivision that city code that currently has for that decision on whether or not it's a go or no-go.
And then, so I had one other question, as far as the sewer and the temporary improvements, is $5,000 a fair share to help mitigate the cost to the city?
Rob's gonna come up again on that one.
Perfect.
I think I can summarize what he said at city council, but I wouldn't do it justice.
So city staff did take a look at what the potential cost of the temporary improvements were. And we did look at what the percentage share of that additional capacity that's being used by them versus 2 city projects which have been approved for construction. And that $5,000 represented around about 5% of what the estimated total cost of doing those temporary upgrades to the lift station would be. So we thought it was a fair representation of what their impact was.
Based off what you think the usage will be for that area?
Yes.
Okay.
You look at the total capacity of the lift station for this number of homes, it is a very small impact. But we are at the standpoint where if this subdivision didn't come in and if the city wasn't doing its improvements, we would be right up close to the full capacity of that lift station. With this coming in, it was in a really gray area. But being in the gray area and then the city adding about another 50 gallons per minute to the lift station because we're taking 2 other lift stations off, it really accentuated the need for putting something temporarily in there until 2024. And this was the least expensive option, and we did talk with the applicant through the process to get to this. And they can comment a little bit further as to how they feel on that $5,000, but we felt that that was a fair and equitable share towards the lift station.
What do you put in temporarily?
So what we're doing temporarily is we're putting in a couple of larger pumps, and then that will also include some additional electrical work. The electrical work actually tends to be the more expensive part in this because we did happen to have a spare pump laying around that was about the right size to take care of part of that need, which helped a little bit on that cost.
So with when the 5,000 is contributed, then is there enough money there to do this improvement in full?
That is correct. Our city crews have most of the materials on hand now. Because we're moving forward with another project that sometime during the course of this summer is going to be putting more flow in that area, we see that need for those temporary improvements are sometime during the construction year of 2022. So having these things online by the end of 2022 will be fine because, one, this subdivision comes in, they're not going to have all the homes built and occupied by the end of this year. Plus you have 3 other subdivisions out there which are in the process of development, and we don't think that those will be fully built out by the end of the year as well. So we have the money, we've got most of the parts now, we can get the rest of it, and our Water Reclamation Department has committed to having those improvements in place by the end of this year when they're truly needed.
Okay.
The questions for staff? No? Okay. Thank you very much. We go ahead and invite the applicant up.
I can wait.
Chuck Hughes, Coeur d'Alene. Yeah, just get the,
You want one of these maps up?
yeah. Yeah, that one.
That one?
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a pretty simple subdivision. It's an infill, with equal size lots around it. Well, there's lots that are a little bit bigger and lots that are about the same size. Our average lot size is .19, over 8,000 square feet, which meets the R1 zoning. One benefit of this being annexed and turned into a subdivision is you take an existing home that's putting septic into the prairie and put it on public sewer system, and it relieves some of the load off of the aquifer, that sort of thing. And then another is that, we're going to be paying for half a lane of expansion on Prairie. We'll be putting the cash up for that with the plans, so that's a benefit to being annexed and turned into a subdivision. The sewer comes off of, comes off of this end, down. Water is stubbed out on both ends here. We got 2 fire hydrants, one here and one down on this end. And connecting, there's been a lot of discussion on Greencrest Way, but this will conform with the traffic pattern that's planned. Traffic going this way and then continuing on out, up to the north. But anyway, do I have any questions?
Questions at all?
I don't.
Okay.
One sec. My name is Jeremiah Steckman. Thank you, Chuck. Jeremiah Steckman, Rathdrum. Axiom Homes. We're working together on this project. One thing, just a quick note, and I think Rob, you probably made it adequately clear. The temporary sewer improvements that are required regardless of whether this project goes forward. Our participation in that is really an acknowledgement that we're going to utilize those, and we've worked with staff to come to those numbers. I think they're fair to all parties, but it is important to note that regardless of whether this goes forward, those improvements will need to be done for the sake of other projects coming online. So just want to make that clear.
Okay, appreciate that. Any questions? No? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Public comment in favor?
None in favor, but we have one in opposition.
Okay, I was gonna go to neutral, but since you beat me to the punch, so we'll just go there. So we have one individual in opposition wishing to speak. Mr. J, is it Lithicum? Come on up, sir. We'll have you state your name and address. Mr. Manley, you will man the clock.
I'm Jay Linthicum. I live at 1600 West Hydrilla, Post Falls. I live directly across from this development. I do have some observations about the traffic flow that wasn't mentioned here, I don't think, this evening. If you're interested in that, that's not part of my presentation, but I will be happy to give you some information about that. I understand I have about 3 minutes here. I've timed this about 3 minutes and 15 seconds, and if we get to 3 minutes and you feel you need to stop me, I will honor it and respect that.
Thank you, sir.
Permit me to stick to my notes. It will help me to keep from wandering. I have 2 concerns. The first concern is the proposed density. The proposed plan shows 18 individual private lots to be established on this small acreage. This development sits adjacent to and east of Arrowleaf Loop, I think it's called Lane now, with the next main thoroughfare being Chase Avenue off to the east. There are two other nearly identical properties of this size under current developments and nearing completion, which have divided their developments not into 18 private lots, but 12 private lots on the same size acreage. 6 less private lots per development than the proposal we have before us tonight. With the exception of the one development west of Arrowleaf Loop, all other developments for blocks around have no more than 12 private lots per comparable acreage. And just across Fisher Street, there are no more than 4 to 6 private lots for comparable acreage. The nearby neighborhoods would prefer that the density of this proposal align more with the existing and prevailing community design of the surrounding neighborhoods. Just as the other nearby developments underway of similar size can make a handsome profit from 12 lots, it is reasonable that the same handsome profit can be made here in this development if it were approved with the 12 private lots instead of 18. Concern number 2. If I understand the proposed development plan correctly, half of these proposed lots' backyards will be facing the front yards and front doors of their new existing neighbors. If a property owner puts a car on blocks or parks a boat, travel trailer, or RV which gets mowed around but not under, or a well-intended but now untended garden plot that has gone to seed and weeds, or has a well-worn swing set that is now rusty and dilapidated, or choose to leave a table out where they routinely dress fish from fishing trips or dress a deer from their successful hunting trip in preparation for the garage freezer. If he puts this in their front yard, the city will take issue with this and have the situation corrected. But not so much if these items are in the property owner's backyard. As these new backyards are now going to be face-to-face with our front yards, 14 to 15 of the existing property owners may be facing very unsightly front yard views in the future. Having an uncluttered and messy backyard across from your backyard is one thing. Having a cluttered and messy backyard across from your front yard is something else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Does the applicant want to come up and address?
On the south side of Stockwell, let's see here.
Now you did it.
Yeah, I did it. No, there we go. Okay, on the, let's see, where's my arrow? There we go. Okay, on the, what the gentleman there is referring to is this section here, and then Hydrilla Lane comes across here, and then there's open space between Hydrilla Lane and privacy fencing here. So it's not exactly correct that, the backyard of these houses do face the front yards of these over here, but there is a street, and there's open space, and then there's a privacy fence. And in terms of the density, we're less dense than the subdivision to the west. We average 0.19. We have four lots. Let's see. We got 4 lots on the west side, or the west side of Stockwell Court that are 0.24. These 4 right here, and then we've met R1 zoning and privacy fencing all around here. Any questions?
Yeah, could you show me again where the backyards will be
Okay, yeah.
up to the front yards?
Yeah, let me see my arrow. Okay, this line right here
Okay,
is the backyards,
okay,
and then there's open space for the subdivision to the south. And then there's Hydrilla Lane, and then the front yards of,
Okay, so on the other side of Hydrilla?
yes.
Okay.
So you got street, and you got open space, and you have a privacy fence.
And you do have a privacy fence?
Correct. Yeah, we were required to do privacy fencing all the way around. And
Okay.
that'll be part of our project.
Okay.
Any questions?
Other questions? I believe that takes care of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions? For staff, applicant, anybody else?
Is that part of the staff or the conditions, the privacy fence?
We'll go over those 6 conditions. I think it'll be apparent when we go over those 6 criterias, if it does or if it doesn't.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then we'll get into those 6 areas right now.
You have, you want to explain to him, he can't.
Yeah. Yep, I'll gavel it out in just a second. Just to explain, the way the process works is that we have staff come up, ask their questions, applicant comes, then that gives the opportunity for citizens to come up and share their piece. After that, there are no more questions. Thank you, sir. So we'll go ahead and close that out and open up for 6 criteria. Got a hair that's just bothering me. Okay, water system supply is adequate in terms of quality and quantity for the type of subdivision proposed. I know that it was addressed. Anybody care to address it specifically?
I think the East Green Acres Irrigation District will serve letter is what we have to lean on. So if they decide that, or they say they can serve it and they have the ability and the capacity, then we have to rely on that. There's no evidence to the contrary.
Agreed. Anyone else see anything of concern?
Agreed.
Okay. Let's move on to the second one. I know that one's going to take a little bit more time. Adequate provision is made for public sewage system that exists. The existing municipal system can accommodate the proper sewer flow. Obviously, we know that there's a couple changes. Comments, Mr. Stephenson?
Well, yeah, that was my question exactly, and, you know, it sounds like whether this development goes forward or not, those temporary improvements and ultimately the long-term improvements were gonna have to be done because of the growth. But it sounds like the city has worked with all the different developments, not only this one, but the other ones, to talk amongst ourselves and get everything situated on a fair and equitable price so the city doesn't spend too much more money on things. So I'm fine with that solution.
Okay. Other items that feel we need to address? Everybody's comfortable with?
I think Rob described it pretty well. They're basically just they're doing some electrical upgrades in the panels and they're dropping new pumps in the hole. And it's something they're gonna do anyway. And this is an opportunity for the city to say, hey, developer, you've got 19 lots coming online and your share of it, of this upgrade is $5,000. And so, you know, that is fair share, right? That is it came from the city saying this is the fair share.
Right.
And if you provide this, then we'll have the capacity to serve you.
Everyone on the same page? Everybody agree?
Yeah, I have less concern knowing that the money's there.
Right.
I think that's important to me.
I also think it's, I'm pleased because it does seem like a fair share.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I think it might be, the applicant may be paying more than what might seem fair, so I think the city's done a good job there.
Absolutely. Anything else to add? Let's move on to number 3, streets and transportation. Proposed streets are consistent with transportation elements of the comprehensive plan. I think we see that there are. I think there was some confusion or concern with the streets.
I think staff covered that, though, explained exactly what the movement's is going to be for this and then in the future.
With the short term and long term, is everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing like what everyone else has done on that strip with regards to Prairie Avenue. They're gonna build the pathway, and then they're gonna write a check to the city for the Prairie Avenue improvements, so the widening of Prairie Avenue. So that gets all done at one time instead of little hodgepodge pieces. And then it just fills the gap between two developments and connects roads. So it's just fitting that last little puzzle piece right into the hole.
It almost sounds like what you just said is with development comes the infrastructure?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add? Okay, let's move on to the next one. All areas of proposed subdivision may involve soil and topographical conditions. Presenting hazards have been identified. Proposed use of these areas are compatible with such condition. We're dealing with farmland, but was there anything that would cause of any concern?
No.
No.
I think this is
Nothing noted.
pretty straightforward, nothing noted, no individuals came up saying there was something used for this 20 years ago, so.
Buried fuel tanks, et cetera,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yep, pretty self-explanatory. Number 5, area proposed for subdivision is zoned for the proposed use, and the uses conforms to the other requirements found in this code.
Well, yeah, I think it's very similar
Yeah,
to
it's very
what's being
similar
built
to
right,
what's
it's
already
been
there.
on both sides of it right
Yeah.
now.
Yes, and the density fits within the R1 in which city council approved it as such.
Yep.
Anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay, let's move to number 6. The developers made adequate plans to ensure, well, let's just cut this short. It's the fair share piece of it. Community impact, cap fees, and fair share. I think we've kind of addressed it a little bit with the sewage, but any other thoughts, concerns, or comments in regards to this?
I think this goes to, our common statement of the impact fees. It was already told that they're gonna give a fair share for the sewer, which is great. And the improvements to Prairie, which pretty much every development over there is just giving money in lieu of doing the improvements, so all that'll be done at one point. So I think we're good.
I think the other thing to remember is not only are they gonna be paying impact fees, but they're gonna pay cap fees for sewer too.
Mhm.
And there'll be water hookup fees for the for the water district as well.
Right. Other thoughts? Anything else to add?
I do want to make one clarification, but I want to bring it up here.
Okay.
I have a question for you, John, while you bring it up. On the subdivision conditions, you have one for a fence, item number, what is it, 6?
10.
10,
Yeah.
item 10, along Prairie, but not on the other end. What's the reasoning there?
I believe it's because of the road classification of Prairie. Yeah, you can go ahead. Rob's gonna go ahead and get more detailed on that.
Commissioners, Rob Paul, Assistant City Engineer. City code does not require subdivisions to put in fences around their perimeter. However, we do have in our road design standards that when a subdivision is either adjacent to a railroad or a principal arterial roadway, we also will usually do this along most minor arterial roadways as well, due to the higher speed and higher traffic volumes, require the fence to go up in those locations to try to provide some additional safety from the subdivision versus the busier roadways or the railroad. So, no, it was not a condition in here. They can add that though, correct, John?
I'd punt the ask to legal, what the parameters are on that aspect. What I wanted to do is point out is there's a reference to 19 lots. And when I counted, because we looked at 18, there's 5 lots to the south across Green Quest. And then you have, looks like another, I counted 18 earlier.
There's still 18.
There's still 18, so there's no 19. They're not sneaking in an extra lot. I know the narrative had 19.
Mhm.
But it's
okay.
for 18, so I just wanted to make
I appreciate the
that clear out of the commentary. Now, on the fence condition aspect,
So, excuse me. Again, at the subdivision stage, it's really limited to whether or not it complies with our adopted ordinances and code. So generally, we don't use subdivisions to add additional conditions that may create brand-new requirements that aren't in code. So as Rob stated, the code doesn't require perimeter fences. However, they are putting the fence along Prairie if they're amenable to putting the fence around the perimeter or on those southern properties. That's certainly something that can be included in the conditions of approval.
I would think we'd leave it at their discretion. I mean, it's one of those things where it's required by code, but we kind of flirt a fine line if we tell them they have to do it, even though they've already said they're gonna do it. I would just probably leave it to their discretion, or I think we should probably leave it towards their discretion and allow them to honor their word.
I know applicant appears to be willing to address that, but does that cause us to reopen the hearing?
That would, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
Okay. Think we're good? Okay. Other thoughts? Concerns?
I don't know if I can, if I'm out of the period I can ask this. I just had a quick question on the open area there, green space. Is that part of the development next to it or part of this development?
It's a neighbor one.
It's the new one.
I'll pull up that map, and if I end up crossing a territory, I'll let Field
You
cut
pull
me
up the
off.
map and we can discuss it.
That's what I was gonna recommend.
So it's part of theirs, so they'll have the maintenance of that.
This
that-
green space is part of Arrowleaf, and the green space south of these properties are part of Craftsman and Meadow Ridge.
Okay. So none of them are,
None of them are
part of this
being
development.
maintained by this development then?
Yeah, none of them are new, open
Okay,
space, they're
okay.
existing.
I just wanted, okay. Thank you.
How else can we tread the line to reopen this hearing? Anything else?
Fine line here.
That's why I was sticking to the facts.
Sticking to what was in the record.
Yes. Other comments? Anything for the good of the order? Anything else to add? If not, we've already closed the hearing out. We've covered the 6 criteria. It appears as though everyone's comfortable with this as an infill project. But with that being said, I guess I would turn it over to you all and entertain a motion if one chooses to make one.
I'll give it a try. I move to approve Stockwell Court Subdivision, file number SUBD 0013-2021. I'm finding that it meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberation. Subject to conditions 1 through 14 as contained in the staff report, and direct the staff to prepare a written reasoned decision.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Hampi,
yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Administrative and staff reports.
None.
None to add? Commission comments?
Thanks for the chips.
Yes, thanks for the chips and the dip. We appreciate it.
I like
Thank-
these good food days, so
Yeah.
look those up.
It was
Okay.
actually National Puppy Day too, but
We didn't all
that
get
would
a-
have really been crazy.
We didn't
here
all
with
get a
bunch of
puppy, huh?
puppies.
We got gypped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and gavel out and talk about that in a minute. All right. If nothing else, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.